Okay, so you might know your chemistry inside and out, right? But getting every single mark on an exam paper, that is a whole different ballgame. It's not just about the facts you've memorized, it's about strategy, being super precise, and really understanding what the person marking your paper is actually looking for.
So, how do you think like an examiner? How do you get inside their head? Well, the good news is they kind of give us the key. It's the mark scheme, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to treat it like a secret code that we can crack together. By the end, you'll see exactly what it takes to get those top marks.
And to do that, we need a real-world example, right? So we're grabbing question 9 from an actual official AQA GCSE Chemistry paper. We're going to put this thing right into the microscope and use the official mark scheme as our roadmap to the perfect answer.
All right, let's jump right in with the first part, question 9.1. Now this is a classic. It's designed to trip people up and really test if you get the difference between two super important ideas, acid strength and concentration. They sound similar, but they're not.
Okay, so here's the full question. I'll give you a second to read it over. Think about it. We've got hydrogen chloride, and the question gives us a huge clue. It fully ionizes in water. Plus, we've only got 1 gram of it floating around in a whole decimeter cubed of water. So, what's your gut feeling? What are you thinking?
The absolute key here is to not get overwhelmed. You gotta break it down into 2 separate pieces. First up, strength. The question literally tells us that hydrogen chloride fully ionizes. And what do we call an acid that completely ionizes in water? Bingo, it's a strong acid. So part 1, done. Now let's look at concentration. We've got a really small amount of stuff, just 1 gram, in a pretty big volume of water. And that, by definition, makes it a dilute solution.
So you just put those 2 pieces of the puzzle together. We have a dilute solution of a strong acid. And that, my friends, is the exact wording from the AQA mark scheme. See? The trick was just to tackle strength and concentration as 2 separate things, using the clues they gave you right there in the question.
Okay, great. Now let's move on to the next part of the question. You'll see how it builds on what we just figured out. Question 9.2 takes these same ideas, strength and concentration, and throws pH into the mix. So here are your options. You've got 2 different acids, ethanoic acid and our old friend, hydrogen chloride, and they're at 2 different concentrations. So once again, take a sec. Which one of these is going to have the absolute lowest pH? What do you think? The most important thing to remember here is what lowest pH actually means. It's simple, really. A lower pH means more acidic. And what does more acidic mean chemically? It means you have a higher concentration of H+ ions. So if you want the lowest pH, you need the highest concentration of H+ ions. And to get that, you need 2 things. A strong acid that releases all its hydrogen ions, and a high concentration, so lots of that acid in the water.
So if we look back at our options, the official mark scheme tells us the answer is the 1.0 mole per decimeter cubed hydrogen chloride solution. And it makes perfect sense, right? Hydrogen chloride is our strong acid, 1.0 mole per decimeter cubed is the highest concentration they give us, put them together, and that's the combo that gives you the most H+ ions, and boom, the lowest pH.
So what's the big takeaway here? What did we actually learn from pulling apart this one question? Well, it all boils down to one thing, really. You have to learn to think like the examiner. This whole exercise really shows us 4 key things. First, the examiner is 100% testing if you know strength and concentration are not the same thing. Second, you have to know that relationship. Lower pH means more H+ ions. It's a core concept. Third, your language has to be on point. You can't just throw words like dilute or strong around. You have to use them precisely. And finally, and this is so important, the mark scheme isn't just an answer key. It's your roadmap. It's the ultimate guide to what an examiner is actually looking for. And that brings us to one last little thought to chew on. The mark scheme itself. It has its own set of detailed rules for the people marking your paper. For example, did you know it makes a difference between an error and a contradiction? One of them can actually cancel out a correct answer you've written down. Wild, right? Understanding those little details, well, that's the next level of exam strategy. Definitely something to think about.